They told us the oceans were walls of silence, deep, dark, and empty, a void without end. For 10,000 years we stood on the shoreline, turned our backs on the horizon, refused to pretend
that humanity never sailed, never dreamed, never wondered.
That cultures grew lonely like islands alone, but the gyres kept turning, the trade wind still calling,
and the old maps were written in salt and in stone.
Oceans are artery, not walls between us, highways of courage where the brave always meet.
From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep, we are mariners, children of wind and of current, one single people who refuse to stay still. The silence is breaking, the dogma is falling, the earth has been speaking through every wave's thrill.
Cedar fleas rounded the Cape long before Caesar, followed the Canaries where the current runs west. Skin bolts of the north rode the same endless river that carried the Norse to the vineyards and rest.
Sweet potatoes spoke in the same tongue in two worlds, chicken bones whispered of voyages done.
Pyramids rose where the same stars were watching, serpents and feathers told tales of the sun.
Oceans are arteries, not walls between us, highways of courage where the brave always meet.
From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep, we are mariners, children of wind and of current, one single people who refuse to stay still. The silence is breaking, the dogma is falling, the earth has been speaking through every wave's thrill. They built empires of fury on never before us, called contact a crime against science's law. But maize crossed the water, tobacco left traces, jade mirrors remembered the faces they saw. Inside the Americas, rivers were highways, Indian roads were like a thread through the sky. When Socorro sailed east on his serpent rock promise, the ocean was never a question of why.
No more false stories, no more convenient boy, no more manifest destiny that history employed.
The past is not static, it flows like the tide, and every horizon was meant to be tried.
We are not prisoners chained to our shorelines, we are the sailors the sea always knew.
One human heartbeat that crossed every ocean, one ancient promise that still rings true.
Oceans are arteries, not walls between us, highways of courage where the brave always meet.
From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep, we are mariners, children of wind and of current, one single people who refuse to stay still. The silence is broken, the old lie is falling, and the air sings again to every wave fills.
Oh, da 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 da. Oh, da 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 da. Oh, da 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 da.
What's going on, everybody? I'm already over here talking to you in the chat. That's why I was delayed a little bit there.
Grabbing the microphone.
Well, you know, I was over here. I'm sitting here in the chat. I'm catching up with Sarah and OMG, JC. What's going on? Amy, WC, good to see you. Jacqueline, Sarah, you're glad to see I'm alive? Well, you know, can't a dude take a little time to bounce between the material and the spiritual? I mean, if I'm going to wear the moniker, you know, I got to take a little time to do that. Plus, I had Charlotte, my youngest, had her 14th birthday on Thursday. So,
congratulations.
Yeah. And we had like awards ceremony for school. So, there was kind of like one of those weeks, but also, just an inward type time going on as well, as is often necessary. What's up, Tom? We're not ignoring you. Who's Tom RUA? Let's it ain't natural. So this guy says we're ignoring him. I'd just like to show we don't do that. While temperature swings after seeing chemtrails, taste the poison in the air. I completely agree with you there. They're spraying poison in our air. In fact, if we do not deal with those deceitful, greed-serving nut jobs, they're going to make humanity extinct as they serve to control through profit. You see, Tom, we don't ignore people that say things like that because we happen to agree with you. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Round Table. We are missing Mr. Rick Osman, who is out in the real world doing something real. He would not disclose any information other than he might have a good story for us when he gets back next week. So this week we are pleased to have Vincent with us, as always, Mr. Barrows. He's going to do a presentation for us here. We have Ricardo, who was missing last week. He missed Vince's excellent presentation. I think we're going to dive a little deeper into something he went into in Book of Wild. And of course we had Chris. Chris broke his roundtable cherry with us while you were gone, Ricardo, in your stead. So that was very pleasant to have him sit in and join us last week. So we're glad to have you back, man. What have you been up to?
He did the Brian Corey Dobbs on us? He broke the chair, actually, or not?
Yeah. Well, that's old American slang, but I know exactly where you're going. Brian Corey Dobbs, who broke his chair, and yeah, that was hilarious. And we've got Mars disclosed. I forgot we're doing that every weekend too. Thanks for reminding me. I have been out of it, as the ladies pointed out, by choice, but it's good to see everybody. So Ricardo, catch us up, man. What you dropped off the earth for a fair amount of days?
Well,
what have you been up to?
We went into a secret location.
It must have been.
Yeah, it is. And we've spent 5 days there. Yeah. So, but before I talk, I just want to introduce James P. Shears, for those that don't know who he is. He's the responsible for surveying probably 1,000 mounds, more or less.
1,000 mounds, a couple hundred sites up here.
Yeah. So we're fortunate to have him here tonight with us, and I couldn't miss the opportunity because I'm leaving Monday, so this was the last time I could have Jim and me at the same time. So, and I'm very glad he accepted. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
As we are too, and you both look good. Whatever you've been up to in your secret location, it looks like the sun has started to shine up there, and you're getting a little warm season. Looks like you gentlemen have been up to something. I'm assuming it had to do with work. If not, perhaps a little party was mixed in there.
Yeah, there was the big birthday of Jim.
That's what I was thinking and snuck in there on us.
If you'll let me brag a little bit, we put Ricardo right next to, within a block of a sacred site in Madison, which is connected to a big rock on top of Observatory Hill and another site further north. And it's part of the golden ratio sequence that you find in the conch shell. And so we can take these nodes north, and after 8 nodes we found, we knew it was there, a very important site, which was the ancient cross portages in North America up here, in a place called Portage County, where no one knows where the portage is, but it's in the swamp. And then it goes all the way up to Lake Superior. Well, there's another one not too far from here, does the same thing, and that goes up to the very site that we were at for a week. And this is along ancient golden ratio geometry hidden into the country. Certain people know it, and surveying could show it, and it's still there, and it's still marvelous experience to go north and contemplate up on Lake Superior. What might have happened long ago, 4,000 to 1,000 BC, and that's what we did for about 4 or 5 days.
So, and we saw a lot, and we passed on the way down, we passed by Powers Bluff.
Yes, and remember when we came through Rhinelander, I said how the roads are changing, and that
Yeah.
one of the first times I came through there was, I thought it was with Vince Burrows, and he took one route and I took another, but we got at the same spot because he had a different map than I did.
You see how Vince sneaks? He's all so quiet, but he's been everywhere. You see?
No, you can see that. That's obvious in Vince, especially when you follow him on any social media. He will just sit there and sort of ninja up like handfuls of artifacts from somewhere on the other side of the globe, and you're like, "Here's what I gathered last week." And like, what? What do you mean last week? Yes, and it doesn't surprise me at all about Vincent.
and he brings something to show us tonight. So
Yeah.
so tell us what wisdom do you bring tonight?
Okay, I wanted to delve a little deeper into the Book of Wild, and this week I looked at the depictions and kind of separated them out to show similarities, to basically to group the images in similar motifs that show up in the Book of Wild. And so I'll share my screen here and just go through this.
Are you familiar with this book?
What, was that a yes or a no?
No.
No, I'm not. I may recognize some things, but please share.
So we're Ricardo. Last week, I guess Vincent Mike could sum up for you, but I guess probably sum up the counter argument. I don't know, where did we get to, Vincent, when we all were talking about how authentic this thing was? You know, we know that it was from the French, right, in the 1600s or the 1800s. Please, Vince, when was
Okay,
it
so yeah, I guess just a high level story is this was recovered in 1860 from the library in Paris, France, and it had been in the library for at least 100 years before then. It's
Library in France.
the library in France had paper a paper book. It's about 170 pages of paper with handwritten depictions throughout that look like they were made in New France or in New England. Basically, some of them were attributed to the Jesuits or Roman Catholic. There's symbols of reliquary. There's a lot of mixing of symbols that deal with slave trade and boats. There's canoe symbols. There's a lot of evidence that these symbols deal with chain gangs or slave trade when they were held together with chains. And
Okay, before you go into your, okay. So I want to be really clear here, right? This is your theory, right? About
right, this is my
representing.
theory. Right,
Yours
this is my
that you've
theory.
developed on your own, right? I don't guess. I was hoping you could finish giving Ricardo the rest of the backstory. Or what I remember, Vince, is that we know this came from the French, right? Somehow, that there were at one time 100 of these or so in print. That was by the French that they were printed, and then the French government, for some reason unknown at least unto history, they decided to hunt them down.
Yes.
Yes, this is one of the themes we were discussing last week. That history at that time was propaganda. Not only was it propaganda between the Catholic French and the Protestant English, but it was propaganda between two elements of French. And that there was evidence that white people had gotten up there way before the French came in the 1600s, and that these were people were hunted down, and many of them sold into the slave trade. So this is extremely important to me that this information had survived in France during that time. Obviously not because of the permission from the Jesuits, but because that it got through them. And this is the other side of the story. And history is his story. And we realize that what we got for history in this country is the propaganda of the victors. And so this is extremely important to me because it's the other side of that story. And yes, indeed, there are many people who say there were other people there before the French Jesuits wrote the history of Wisconsin.
Right.
James, I'm going to misattribute the quote. I think it was perhaps Joseph Campbell, but I just found it this past week when you were having your conversations about history. And the quote was roughly, myth is important. Myth is true. Myth is, in fact, more true than history because history is simply journalism, and we all know how reliable that is. And that really hit home for me.
Well, if you think that Star Wars exists because of Joseph Campbell and Joseph Campbell exists because of symbolism, then it must be very important.
Well, of course, he was all about the power of myth was one of his works. But I like that because it gives, onus and ownership back to the oldest stories, of course, back to the native populations around the world, because we label their stuff myth, as though for some reason, approximately 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, they all decided to sit around and make up these stories, instead of actually going, no, perhaps there is a reason that they all have these different views.
Well,
Anyway, go ahead,
find-
Ricardo.
I was going to say, I find myth as important as history.
I do. I agree. I do. And I lean towards perhaps more, as James pointed out, the history is so corrupted and the narrative is so corrupted by the goals and objectives of the narrative producers that, go ahead, James. Yeah, jump right in.
I just think of a story from an old Indian telling his kids who were being sent off to boarding school, taken out of their families to be brainwashed in the 1800s in the government schools. He says, in these schools you will find many different tribes coming together, Algonquins and Ho-Chunk and Sioux, and just remember that every culture has their own creation stories. If it's a creation story by another tribe, it's called a myth. If it's a white man's creation story, it's the gospel truth.
Right. And so much is lost in that, James, because the way I see it is if you're trying to get to the truth of any matter, right, of any matter, it doesn't matter what it is, if you're trying to get to the truth of the matter, how much better is that pursuit served if I take every part of the picture I can get, right? Meaning I would like every original source. Let's call the natives this, right? I want as close to original source info as I can get. So if I'm trying to grasp something of be it the spiritual or the cosmological or whatever it is, right? Then I would want to gather all of these, and I would want to allow those to sort of coalesce in myself before I went to proposing, what truth was in that matter. I agree.
Again, in the scientific age, I don't see anything wrong with taking the scientific method that's stuffed down the throats of surveyors and engineers and applying it to history. You've got to examine facts before you come up with your strong beliefs that the bridge is going to stay up and not fall down or whatever.
Yeah.
And the more facts you get, the better is the data. And if we have 3 or 4 different native stories telling the same thing about white people here before Columbus and the Jesuits, that is also data. And you've got to analyze all the data and not throw out the data that doesn't fit your previous beliefs. And that's unfortunately what's been going on for about 100 years with what we call prehistory in this country.
So, Vince, tell me, are those canoes?
So I think so. I mean, this looks like they're riding on a canoe, and that's why I pulled these out of the document. These
I was wondering because it was that or they were Russian acrobats putting the legs
Yeah.
up.
yeah, I mean,
Dude, there's some of these. This is crazy. I wish Ricardo was here last week, or Vince, if you have any of the slides like you did last week, where you could just give them a brief sort of glance at it. But there's a lot of material. These drawings go on for what 100 and something pages, right, Vince?
Yeah, there's 170 pages. I mean, it's amazing, and they all have multiple layers of these documents and drawings that looks like they've been added to and modified over time. So I think like a whole tribe or more participated in this document, and the the document.
What tribe was that?
Well, it's possibly.
Here's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's there's evidence that
I do have access to a very good encyclopedia.
We
So
can't
can you
even say
pinpoint-
for sure who wrote this thing or who
Yeah.
penned it. Okay,
It's hard to
There's
say, right?
There's a story that goes along with it about where it came from, right?
Yeah, the location and the date, and then we might look into the encyclopedia and see if we get who's the tribe there.
Yeah, and when I go through this, I'll get into more detail about
Okay.
that. I mean, it seems like there may be multiple groups that inscribed this document. So, but to start out with, I pulled together the boats, the pictures that look like riding canoe or riding on a boat, and so this is what the first page represents here, and then going on, I guess to the next page, we have this, and I thought, well, that's the only document, the only picture like this in the document. I think it could be like a slave trade boat or a boat with people in the bottom, lined up in the bottom of it next to each other. And the reason for that is, well, there's a lot of supporting evidence as we go through this to support that. But I wanted to show here, Mount Pisgah had 2 boats that were boat-like bold engraved with cross-hatching. These were pulled from the collection. They've no longer been pictured in their catalog. So the ones that have boat shape,
They took the boats out of the catalog.
yeah, they took the boats out of the catalog. These are now missing from the catalog. So that's really interesting, but they had cross-hatching on all sides. They were shaped like boats with pointed ends, and these 2 particular ones were the ones that had shapes like boats, and they're now missing from the catalog.
You have images of them?
No, that's what I'm saying. They were in the catalog, but now they're not. They're
Oh, you might have had taken them before they took the catalog out.
right. They just have the catalog page now, but all the others have pictures except for these 2. And the ones with boat-like images were taken out.
Well, this here are very South American. Huh?
Yeah, this is like South American medicine man type of
What?
imagery.
That's carrying information up in northern Wisconsin. Do you see that circle with a cross in the middle that
Yes.
he's holding?
Yes.
Notice it's like a Christian cross, but it's not. It's at 45 degrees. And I was saying, if you want to go to an Algonquin burial ground, you look for that sign, and it'll be a sign in front of it, like that. So that to me would mean Algonquin people. Now, the people who disappeared up at Fort Saguenay or Saguenay River were whites from different tribes. But they were white people, and they got absorbed as slaves as they were driven out, partly destroyed by the French.
Is the bottom left ant people?
The horn up here would mean, again, Algonquin.
Oh, again, okay.
So I see Algonquin right away. Those
Yeah.
people are the Algonquin.
I'm sorry, the cranes are going
Yeah, that's
wild.
really interesting. This picture shows up in several areas throughout the document. And then they had a lot of boats.
Flags, okay, so whites are somehow involved in there too. Yes,
Yeah.
that figures. Dutch,
And,
French, yep.
and some of these were, this is what we're seeing here. It almost looked like this is a person under a boat or sitting
Yeah,
in
fell
the,
out of a boat and that's the story. They drove those people
Ricardo,
from Lake
what is
Superior
that?
down to Butemart where the French helped them kill them off. And they put their
Yeah.
bones in Butemart.
wow.
Did
Yeah,
you really kidnap a crane?
No, he's quite wild, happy.
So our Jake Wells is saying that in her studies it also saw that as Algonquin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I see from my experience. And it fits the stories, especially of the extinction or near extinction of what we call the fox and the Sauk, the white Indian.
Oh, again the sock.
Yes.
Vincent, I can already see that we're definitely going to need to at some point just bring the whole book like you showed and sent me, and then
Yeah.
just leaf through it. I would love to hear and see what James has to offer on it.
Oh, look at that.
What is the title here, Vince, for this document?
This is called the Book of Wild, Manuscript Pictograph Americae, they titled it. In
Do you have reference to that so you
I
can get?
can do we have it or I need to
Yeah,
look?
you've got it in your email already. He sent it
Okay.
to us and all the.
Yeah, this is very, very important. As a matter of fact, we were up where Native Americans told me stories of how they helped the French drive the white Indians from island to island to island. We went to Butemart, where I told you, where they ended the story. It's in the French history we teach our kids. It's in the Indian history. The only difference is in the Indian history, these people are white Indians. And in the French history, they're a bunch of Sauk to be killed off.
Okay.
And the embarrassing
Welcome,
thing
Tammy.
is, if the truth were known, they were already Christians, but of the wrong flavor, and therefore the French had to kill them off.
And is there any significance to the two balls between the characters? Are they communicating? What do you know? Do you have any idea about that, Vince or Jim?
Well, what I'm showing here is a pin. This is called a cloak pin. And this was something that they found at La Anne's Ox Meadows. And they said, well, this was what proved that the Vikings landed in North America, that they found this pin. Well, this document has hundreds of these pins that are exactly like that depicted throughout the document. And it has clan symbols like the rabbit. There's symbols that are that look like a heart, but this is an actual form of a glyph. And triangles. There's a lot of sword images, radiating lines.
Triangles amongst the indigenous peoples. They didn't know geometry. They didn't have triangles.
Yeah.
Oh, they did though. They just didn't let us know they did.
And the double cross hatching. I mean, this shows up several places.
Double cross on the one before that.
Yeah, this double cross hatching with a circle.
But this is 90 degrees, not 45.
Yes.
Well, I
What-
rotated these. I mean, I rotated these so they would be.
Oh, you rotated. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah, that's another reason I wanted you guys to look at the original. So you're seeing everything in context when we get a chance. But I'm excited
Yeah.
because it tells a story, is what it supposedly does, and I would love to see your take on it.
But this is like it reminds me of Easter basket. Like they're collecting up Easter eggs, and I don't know what your thoughts are on that. If they're collecting berries or putting things in this basket, but apparently they've got this basket, and
Okay. Or is it a silkworm cocoon?
well, I mean they have several depictions
Oh,
that
the
almost look like
squares. The squares
squares
with
with
the small
luggage.
square on top.
And then,
Oh, yeah. They knew about Jesus hanging on the cross. Vincent, have you ever come across a book called the Wolam Olam?
yes, yes, absolutely.
That was a series of boards with writing on it. They weren't really writing, but they're memory aids. And the priests who held the stories of the tribe and they're part of the migration, used that as a memory aid. So I would think that we're in the same area, the same time period. It would be something good for you to check out. That was a group that came, the Delaware Indians, the Turtles, and they made contact with the Dutch. But it's the same period of time, and this guy, there's a disease going through, and they gave him these storyboards. And he also copied down their stories that supposedly went with it. My guess is we're talking same period of time, and it would be good for us to compare all these.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a lot of similarities in the Wallamolam and this document. These, I mean, they all have like the Thunderbird image. They both show that. There's a lot of interesting Thunderbird-like motifs. This, and then first I thought this was dominoes, but I don't think so. I think these dots represent people in a lodge, possibly.
Yeah, people in the lodge. Yeah. There's a guy that lives alone there, but
Yeah.
might be the shaman or.
And then the document, like this could be a lodge or a building, you know, a house structure that's got a pointed roof. And then first that these were representing mounds, but if you turn it upside down, possibly it's a boat crossing the water, and just the underside of the boat as it crosses.
What's the name of the effigies that are backwards? They are into the ground.
Intaglios, mounds in reverse.
Mounds in reverse.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of these circles with crosses all through the document. They show up in a very high abundance, and so like you were saying earlier, that's an important symbol to the Algonquins, and they would make shell effigies like that as well.
James, you had said with confidence they knew earlier of the story of the crucifixion of Christ. From what culture is it, for me, that they picked that up from? In
All
your
the
estimation?
northern Indians of Wisconsin, the Menominee guy told me about it. The Ho-Chunk also knew about Jesus before the French came. They called him Wapan Nu, East Star Man. In the Algonquin language, we use the name today for Wapan, or we send prisoners if it's a state penitentiary, the name is preserved. There's a Wapanu lodge still in existence among the Ho-Chunk up by Black River Falls. They won't tell you much about it. It's still in existence. But tribe after tribe knew all about him because there were people here, at least the Vikings in that era supposedly came, and that was just part of the story, different tribes.
Excellent, thank you.
And if you look at this, this kind of looks like a reliquary, a monstrance reliquary, which is a Catholic or Roman Catholic symbol.
Yep.
They would use
And a
this.
cross on top. Yep.
Yeah,
I call it a Wapanu symbol.
yeah. And there's pictures of the people carrying it and holding it in their hand with the cross on top.
Yeah, and that guy carrying it's got a cross in his belly that could well represent a priest,
Yeah.
Wapanu priest, Christian priest.
And then a lot of these look like they're people laying on a boat, the bottom of a boat, side by side. Just the conditions of a slave boat, what it would be like would have been absolutely horrible to live in such a confined space with all the people laying side by side. A lot of these seem to depict that in the document.
Stories are that the first slave auctions up at Quebec were not for black slaves, but were for white slaves. And that the Catholic, French, and the Protestant English were fighting each other, and they used their allies to do their fighting. And then when one group of allies found that they could capture their enemies and sell them as slaves, that's more valuable than a whole boatload full of fur. And so they took them up there, were shipped down to the French Caribbean, where they became the sugar plantation slaves. But we don't talk about that much. It's very embarrassing.
Right, and that's possibly one of the reasons that they covered this up and they tried to remove it from
Of course.
circulation.
Of course, of course.
You ever found? Don't move. Though, no. Put it. Those. Can you zoom in on the top image? What are those symbols to the right?
I pass. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this shows up several times. I think this represents crossing over between two landforms. I mean, like crossing the ocean or crossing a lake. So this is land on this side, land on the other, and they cross the water. And then this shows
It's often shown in different variations too, guys. Meaning this same symbol, when you look at the holistic, this whole Book of Wild, it's shown in many different orientations all over the place, and with sometimes in multiples, sometimes by itself.
Is there any other tribe or any other document or any other pictographs that show this kind of drawings, this kind of these spirited beings?
Well, this is a rare document. I mean, it's uncommon, and like, you know, the Wallamolam is one. There's only a handful. There's some from the Southwest tribes, but it's very uncommon for anything to exist from this period, especially dealing with the slave trade and dealing with white slaves for sale. I mean, this is really it may be a unique document here.
Okay, and is this acknowledged by academics or is considered a fake, a modern fake?
Well, it's a controversial document. I mean, if you read some of the reviews from academics say, hey, this is a very important document. I mean, it really shows the true history of the country. Others say it's a fake by a German schoolboy to hoax everybody. But there's, I mean, the evidence here shows that, I mean, they definitely weren't just trying to hoax people. I mean, there's so much detail here that's true and valid, and it basically authenticates itself just because of the detail.
And
Well,
the bottom left.
when taken in context, I hate to be the devil's advocate here, Vincent, but I do, because we have experts here. I don't want to use the word authenticate or anything like that, unless they want to use it. But I would like for them to see the whole, because I myself still have questions. I mean, I do see what you're saying about the slaves, being possibly in boats. But I also see, when I was looking at the story, potentially they were talking about disease. Maybe those were sick people. They weren't slaves. So it's just, the whole thing is so fascinating to me. But in context, I have questions about the swords too. If James could enlighten me about where all the sword imagery plays in and why they were using that so much.
Yeah, and I can bring up some of the sword imagery. They definitely had quite a bit of that. There's tribal art motifs and the reliquary, but I wanted to show this one in particular. This is actually from the 1580s, and it's an actual document that was produced in Florida, and
So we can see, because it's not that big.
okay, so he's showing this sacred pole. Basically, they would go up. Oh, sorry. They would go up to this sacred pole, like red pole. I mean, Baton Rouge got its name because they had a pole that was coated with red ochre and blood, and it would be like the sacred icon. They would go up to it and worship it. So I mean, you can see their head dresses and their hairstyles are very similar to what's depicted here in the Book of Wild. And there's two images of a post or a pole like this in the document where people are going up to it and what looks like they're worshiping it, and they have the same type of hairstyle or headdress.
And what is that line above the character from the left?
So I mean, that's another person that was depicted in the document.
Oh, okay, okay.
I've trimmed it to show this similarity here with the pole. But
And
yeah,
why some of them have the follows and others don't?
I mean, I don't know why. I mean, they just, it's how they drew it, I guess. Just
No, the follows is the belly button. It's
Oh.
it's the center of the world or the center of the spirit.
I see.
Phallus on one, or the third leg.
Yeah, the other one has
guy's
three
got
legs.
either a sword or he's a man. One of the-
Right? Is that a stick in your pocket, or did they draw you like a man?
Well, we are lucky that this is an old document, because if a modern one, we know for sure.
No, it gets really graphic. I'm sure Vincent probably left out some of the more graphic imagery in this thing, but it seems to be a bit of a sexual manual at some point. It gets
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
wild.
well, I think that the sodomy and the depictions of graphic sexual behavior, I left those out, but there's a lot of that in this document, and I think it relates to what was happening in the slave trade. I mean, because they were stuck in this boat, they saw that happening while they were being traded, and depicted it. And I mean, it's, as we go through, there's more detail that it's pretty horrific what they were exposed to when they were in these slave trade boats.
Well, could I share with you guys something that might be useful?
Yes.
We will beg you to.
There was one of the first guys to come to the New World, I think, was working for the French. Cartier, does that ring a bell? When he came, he and this is written, but not, you can't get it in your small school libraries. But Cartier was here in late 1400s, early 1500s, right after Columbus, and came up the St. Lawrence River to a Mohawk village. And they told him, oh, you've got to go up and visit the white people at Saguenay, which is that white kingdom near Quebec, the white kingdom of Saguenay. They are white, just like you, with blonde hair. Some of you have blue eyes and don't dress in buckskin, but dress in woven cloth. So he goes up there and he visits them, and he has his artists draw pictures of what he sees. And they come back, and then all hell breaks loose, because when the images get to the royalty of the old world, they see this as where the refugees that Queen Margaret from Denmark brought to the Vinland. Thousands of them, Christians, by the way, at that time, and were eventually lost, and that's part of the white Indians here, untold story. But that's available. Cartier. If you can get into the documents of the early maps of Europe, the Danes, I know I've seen pictures of them, that will be worthwhile. It'll be very interesting to see if there's a similarity to what is there and what you got, because you're onto something solid here. It's just a matter who is involved.
Wow. Yeah. And this page shows some that look like they're captives. I mean, they're almost like in a prison or dungeon looking out. Then it looks like, well, in the original document they interpreted these as bison effigies or bison clan, and then this one up here, all the bison clan people get out, and the captives are now changed, and they've got the four people in this dungeon. So so yeah, they're really there's a lot of those in this
And also in Canada, there's a group called the Métis who are associated with the Templars still. They got stories like this.
Wow, yeah, look, and here, I mean, it shows like the same thing, like they are looking down at this dungeon or captive person in this box and walking around above them. And these bubbles, I've interpreted that as chain, like they chain this person up, they're holding them on chain. But that's just my thought of what the bubbles represent. And then there's more pictures like that, and
That cross down there kind of looks like a crude Christian church to me, but who knows?
yeah, yeah. And then all kinds of things like this lightning arms, almost like they're wavy arms and wavy legs, like they're moving quickly. Their faces obscured. There's pictures of animals throughout, like drawn as clan symbols, perhaps. And holding staffs. There's a lot of these that show figures holding staffs. And then
Ever
similar-
considered the hammer of Thor that the
Yeah.
Vikings had before they became Christian?
That's a good point. And then similar type of boat imagery with a square type of boat here, or a raft, possibly.
The same symbol that looks like a heart again.
Yeah, down here, the same. There's two that have the heart symbol.
They both have a belly button.
Yeah, and then there's this. It gets into what I think is vomiting. I mean, they're basically projectile vomiting, or either that or they're speaking loudly. But in comparison here, they show this is that document from the 1580s that shows them having the black drink, and then these people are vomiting. It's part of their hallucination or reaction to this black drink.
Can you zoom in? Oh, they are literally vomiting. Okay.
Yeah.
And what type of
Well, Jim,
what type of human are they? What race? Can we distinguish?
well, again, they have that top hairstyle, just like it's depicted in the document throughout, and they look like they're, I don't know, they look white.
Don't you think that's from the artist that was with the early explorers down in North Carolina, South Carolina, Seminoles? About
Yeah.
that time?
Yeah, that's right. This was actually from 1580,
Yeah.
and in Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Well, yeah, right. Creeks, we'd call them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was also paintings of the white Indians up here, which you're not going to get in your libraries around here unless you get special contacts.
And then it shows rats like devouring people or jumping on them, eating them, eating
Ooh.
his legs gone.
And again, that symbol.
Yep.
Now it
Yeah.
has a circle between the heels.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like a remnant of a script or something when you see the whole document, the way it's peppered everywhere in the whole thing. These are all, remember, just little excerpts. If Vince were to expand it, there's probably what you see on one little page here. Actually, one page is probably what, Vince, like either 6 or 4 of probably of what you're actually seeing in these little pictures.
Yeah, there's so much in here. It's incredibly just packed with these drawings and depictions throughout.
If
And
you're willing to share this information, if you would share them with
I have the
Ricardo,
book already.
and when we're up north again, we've got Native Americans we can check with to see if there's any recognition. But
yeah, that'd be great.
it's real, the story is gonna be there, and there's enough writing on birch bark still among certain tribes that there may be a common language still.
So the one on the right has 2 dots. Is it because it is a female or?
2 belly buttons, probably.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
and-
breasts are represented more like breasts elsewhere, aren't they? They're sort of, an actual circle with a dot on it. So it's hard to say.
Well, one thing that Rick Osmond pointed out is this symbol here with the fork-like thing. It's an Awen. The Awen is a symbol of Welsh, Cornish, Breton. Means inspiration in Welsh mythology. Awen is the inspiration of poets, bards, personification. It's inspirational muse for the meaning of musicians and poets.
Yeah, but considering that the fellow that has that also has some horns, I would not discard the idea of we are talking about slaves, so it could be some symbolism of voodoo, like a priest holding a chicken paw.
Yeah, that's true. That's possible.
Or that English guy was there in around the campfire, and he was talking, and it was evil talking. The woman there was saying, talking from the heart. I mean, you got all kinds of symbolism that can go along with it.
Wow. And these show more like vomiting images, a lot of either that or black drink. I don't know. It's hard to say. But these show up throughout the document. And then this is really unusual. This person has 3 belly buttons or whatever they may be, and this one has 2. And then a lot of these branching figures show up in the document, like almost wheat like or branching type of pine tree needles.
So is that guy being whipped, or are they the little ones fanning the big one?
Yeah, I mean there's a possibility it's whipping or flogging that's being depicted here.
They could be also fanning as slaves a big one.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
some
a
mouse.
shark mouse.
Yeah, shark, like a mouse, like being with the same type of fan whipping, holding on to
I've
that
never seen petroglyphs like that.
shark. Yeah, shark. That looks like a shark fin there, doesn't it? And
Yeah, it's reversed, but
yeah,
the mouse could be drunk when he put it on.
yeah. And then bear. I pulled this up to show a comparison of the Mount Pisgah bear with the one from this document.
Very similar.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many similarities with Mount Pisgah artifacts. They all seem to have this cross hatching or line engravings on them. And then there's some that look like they're wearing space helmets or have this aura around their head.
Or have their arms like this.
Yeah,
Although it's also crosses the chest, so probably
Yeah.
is not. Jason regretted what he was going to say.
Oh, and then take a look at the,
Crossbones.
Skull and cross.
So,
yeah,
Skull.
so the
Skull
Templars were here.
And
that's right. And the Mount Pisgah relics have the same type of thing. This is a picture here from Mount Pisgah with the same
Can you
cross.
zoom in on that?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't quieting because of you there, bro. I've got several things, questions or things I want to say, but I kind of don't want to until maybe you guys see the whole thing in context. So I was just trying to be a better host there, but thanks for almost cutting me off, but I already cut myself off. Go ahead, Vince.
No, not directly. How you say?
Yep. Hard to imagine that is not associated with Christianity, with Christianity's symbols up and stories up there.
Yeah, the Christian cross here on the earth. or the circle.
And the mesh, why did you suggest put it there?
Yeah, the mesh. I thought that's like net, a net or a quickly.
I'm not sure your dog agrees with you, but
Yeah, my dog is barking up a storm. I need to let it out. But this is almost like spirals or hurricane spirals, and it gets really interesting to hear this. Now, I think this could be like a depiction of a globe, a symbol of a globe with ocean, continents on both sides of the ocean.
well, that to me is a snake.
Yeah, a snake here and a snake here, but they're in this circle like the Earth.
Okay, you've seen that list of universal pictographs or rock art that you also shared on the email?
Yeah,
Are any of these symbols there? That, for instance, that thing that looks like Kipu, the bar with the 3 chords, is that one of those symbols?
the lightning up here. You mean like the zigzag lightning?
That's lightning?
I mean that's my.
That's just what he's calling it, zigzagged.
Yeah, zigzag. I don't know.
And the circle with the dot and the 2 horns.
Yeah, that was like we looked at the captives in that area or bison.
Keep in mind the size of this, right? Is where my mind goes. Like you've got a guy standing on the top of these 2 circles, right? So I in all fairness, I could they all be animal representations? Like he has, trapped in somehow a snake, and you see where I'm going, because these things are all very small relative to the rest of the figures we've been seeing. You just don't get it in the small cutaway. So it
but
could
again,
be something like that.
The ESO is always there.
Yeah, in different arrangements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we saw this one as Algonquian earlier. Well, if this is the Algonquian living around the snake, this could be the river, the Mississippi River. It could be the bison up here.
Snake River up there? Is there a Snake River up there?
Burroughs Cave rocks show all that country in the UP and Mississippi and Wisconsin, the land of the snake. The Wollum, the migrations, they come to the land of the snakes, and the Cheyenne did that. Is that a map behind the writing?
I don't know. I mean, this is just a screenshot clipping of it. So, yeah, I'll share the original, but I just extracted this, and yeah, it looks almost like that they have some kind of previous document or previous engravings or lines behind it.
Yeah, and that gets back to the questions of how this thing was made, and we're not those aren't questions that can even really be answered. But we just, was it a French guy listening to natives? Was it a native that was writing it for the French guy? The story of the book just doesn't seem to have that answer.
Yeah, so
Marvelous stuff.
thank you.
Very valuable.
Yeah, I hope to share to share the original document with you, and like you say, it'd be great to get an interpretation or to get.
Yeah, do you need to see to your dog? And then I definitely want you to go ahead and if they have time, share the full thing and let them take a peekaroo at it.
Yeah, let me do that. I'll be right back.
Yeah, see the doggo, man. I often have to do the same thing. So yeah, guys, I think it's worth your time to take a look at the whole thing.
Oh, I love to.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, and it's I would love the reason I've been holding a lot of my questions is I realize some of them might be leading to, I didn't want to lead. I just would like to see your guys' interpretation of what you see. I tried to, and maybe you can help here. I couldn't get to the heart of how precisely we came about this document. That's curious to me, and I couldn't get to. I know they had the birch bark. Am I correct, James? So here's the question that was in my head: is this seemed to be a very experienced hand? And while Vince is gone, you could maybe educate me and the audience on Would natives have had an experienced hand at this point? Were they used to marking, markings of any sort on something resembling paper with something resembling a brush or a charcoal stick or a pen or anything of that nature?
You want to do it?
No, no, you please.
All right, I'll respond with my perception. Number one, if this got into the French libraries, that would mean first French contact. Cartier, when he came up the river for the French, settling near Quebec where they set up their new government. That's the start of it. Well, the first governor was Champlain, who was also a Templar. And he was very reluctant to have armies go on other Christians like they had against the Templars, and he drug his feet up there. Now, were there Templars there before the French? And I say absolutely. If you follow the Curse of Oak Island over the last 2 years, you get some Portuguese coins, but that's all the treasure you get. But what you're getting is proof. Not only the Templars were there, they had contact with Portugal and the Azores to verify what Pamita said, that the Templars were all through this country very early time, hundreds of years before the French. Now, Champlain was the first to publish a map of Lake Superior. But he hadn't sent out his explorers yet, his mappers. But he had this map. Somehow the natives already could make maps better than the French. If the Templars were here, or if those white Indians at Saguenay were really French Christians from Greenland, and the Templars had been with them, not only were they capable of geometry and mapping and so on, they were the keepers of that in the old world. So to answer your question, yes, they had the ability, and we know they had the ability because we went up to northern shore of Lake Superior many years ago to Otterhead Island, out in the middle of nowhere, because somebody in a lighthouse up there said, come up and look. And there was equivalent of something that looks just like an old ruined Christian church there. Big cathedral. Rock walls 2 or 3 feet high and divided into rooms, ideal harbor, and so on and so forth and so on. Well, that was shown on Champlain's map of 1603 as an old castle. Champlain never got up that way. And the Radisson and those people who he sent out to explore never got up that way. But somebody was making maps accurate at that time. And that
So for the audience, go ahead, James. I thought you were done. Please continue.
So to answer your question, if the Templars got here, they were the master architects, map makers, navigators, and there's indication that Netherlands also had highly skilled people, and that they helped some early Norse in their navigation and so on. There's no reason that they didn't have skills as good as the average navigator and artist in the old world.
So for the
Yeah.
audience at home, the Templar connection, just to give you a brief little backstory here. So the Templars obviously were a very real organization, historically responsible basically for modern banking. I think we could all just about hand them, along with many other things. But according to lore, right, and again, you're talking about an organization that was deliberately trying to keep itself at a certain point. out of the history books mostly. But according to lore, when they were in the Middle East, one of the things they found, amongst many others, were some very old maps that they were then in possession of, which showed basically the world. Well mapped by some prior civilization. We often refer to it as the lost civilization or the antediluvian civilization. From that point on, then, the Templars, at least the controlling members, would have been in control of maps of the world that they could trust, rely on, and navigate on. So once you take that on board, you then realize that having a few bands of Templars running about Canada, depositing themselves for a while, trying to stay on the lam, because basically the Pope, the Church, the French government, everybody was after them, then they would have naturally run into a few pockets of natives. They would have stuck out. Some of them might have been white because they were traded as slaves by their fellow French white, and naturally these abilities would have been left behind and passed on. Am I paraphrasing it? Am I following the lesson so far?
Very good. And then
Thank you,
also
sir.
the Métis in Canada have the other part of the story if you ever get a chance to talk to them.
Okay, so yeah,
Back. We've been tape filling the air, and you're back to show us some more stuff. How's
yeah,
it
I'm
all
back
go?
to show. So there's more stuff here. And to answer your question, did they have the ability to make these type of images? Well, I have absolute proof here that they did. And in fact, they made these on things like in totemic signs that they engraved on wooden panels. Like this was, there's a book called The Sacred Scrolls of the Southern Ojibwe by Selwyn Dewdney. And he published these depictions which they carved on birch bark. They would actually take birch bark from the trees and they would engrave it. These are some fragments of the birch bark, but the images on the birch bark are fairly similar. They have the rounded shaped heads and a lot of these stick figures depicted. And in some cases they would engrave boulders with these were called ribstones, showing similar types of things like the bison-headed person over here. These were actually found in Alberta, and the engravings represent the rivers, and this is like a map stone as well. And so they had these. This is called the Trochu ribstone. And so these birch bark scrolls were gathered together. This is James Red Sky, and he had these scrolls that had been passed down to him from generation to generation. These scrolls had these images all over it, and they depict things like you see here. The lodges, these represent the different types of symbols that they would have on the birch bark scrolls, and they sometimes had frogs or these pieces of bark that were stitched together, and they had cross stitching. They would use quills for stitching them, and there were a lot of similar symbols found representing power projection with the cross hatching. And the same type of bison-headed headdress as well. So,
That's a very artistic exclamation point.
yeah, this is. I mean, there's a lot of information here, but this document shows there's 4 different types of scrolls that are from birch bark. There's master scrolls, there's migration scrolls, deviant scrolls, and teaching scrolls. And so these different scrolls were made in certain patterns to either teach lessons and show how their ceremonies were held. In some cases, they actually show the procession, the way people were supposed to walk in the lodge during ceremonies. And there's other ones that show migration routes, like this. This is an example of a map stone, or a map depicted here on the birch bark. And it represents Leech Lake. This is the actual depiction from the birch bark here, showing the Leech River and the connections between the two sides. And then
How were they marking the bark, Vincent?
they used Buren spalls from flint, so sharp points from flint, and they would
Cutting it?
engrave these lightly on the birch bark.
Got it.
And so let me go back. This is the map glyph on the birch bark scrolls over here that matches Lake Superior. It shows the sacred portage. It shows St. Lawrence River, and then over here, Big Sandy Lake, the Mississippi River, where it starts out. And so this is correlating the symbols on the birch bark scrolls to actual landforms and the portages that had to occur.
Okay,
So-
just to make sure I am the only one who didn't know what a portage is.
The
Jason,
portage is when they carry the boat on their back
Okay,
while they walk across the land.
'cause I didn't know that.
Waterway.
Too many
So-
rocks, man. Get the canoe out. We got to hump it.
Yeah.
To add to what you're saying here, among the Algonquins, Chippewa, Menominees, Ojibwas, Potawatomis, and so on, they have different names for each other to some extent. And one of those guys said, well, there's this one group called the Ojibwa tribe up there. So the name Ojibwa is different than Chippewa. It is those who are expert writers. They're known as the writers. That's what he said. So drawing and writing was very much in a fashion. They weren't using paper and ink, but birch bark. And it looks to me like the Woollum must have been on birch bark too, huh? You think?
Yes, that's right. Woollum as well. And so, yeah, these are migration scrolls that actually show the route they took across the land, and they kept record of it like a map. And
Is it a migration map, or is just
Migration.
the moving of the seasons where they got from one point
No,
to the other?
remember I was talking about that comet that hit
Yeah.
that part of the Woollum that related to Ralph Red Fox when his people went from West Coast here. And it talks about going from the mountains where the water came up and flooded everybody, and those who were high enough could flee. And they fled at wintertime, walked across the frozen sea, which has to be Hudson Bay. When they got on the other side of it, they were down below the tundra where they saw pine trees and saw buffalo and deer and so on, and eventually came to Wisconsin.
yeah, these are actual migration charts. They show, see, it says like a little further downstream now in the Mississippi, two wrong rivers are shown as snakes. And in a further, more explicit hint, still further downstream where the river swings south, a small section of the Mississippi, giving access upstream to Sandy Lake and early Midi Center. So yeah, I mean, these are very well depicting of
What are those? Can you zoom in on those circles so I can see what they
Yeah.
are?
Let's see. Just a second. Here.
You're fighting.
There we go. So yeah, it looks like 4 people, square body people with round heads sitting in the circle here in concentric rings.
Do these people build effigy mounds or mounds at all, or no?
Well, they would have been correlate around the same time. I mean, the mounds were built.
Everybody buries their dead, so whether it's in a little mound or a big mound depends on the culture.
No, I was just wondering. You see 4 birds around that rectangle. I was just thinking if they
Yeah,
were-
there's symbolism there. This was meant to go with a verbal story.
Story.
These were called nothing more than memory aids.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one down here, it has a lot of detail. Sorry, just try to get this centered. Okay.
Do you have any images of the boats prepared to show us?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to show. Just a second. Trying to get back to the mode where I can change pages. Um,
Just because we have the two ladies on the chat that says we had boats, so
okay. Just a second. I'm going to try to refresh this so I can show the boats. So it's, well, this one shows some of the bear mandibles that have the similar symbolism of the squares with the circle, the square in the middle. Bear mandibles were oftentimes engraved as well. And there was Mijas shells. They were basically a sacred shell that was used in these ceremonies. This is a picture here of what the birch bark scrolls that were bitten would have looked like. They would bite these pictures in them, and there was a lady called Angelique Morasti that lived in Saskatchewan. She would bite pictures of butterflies into the birch bark and make these depictions.
then again, that is that heart shape.
Yeah, the kind of the heart shape as well. And other types of Mija shells were made of copper as well. There's one that's made of the birch bark biting method from the Saskatchewan tribe, Angelique Morasti.
Why do you call them biting? Is actually
Yeah,
done
they actually would bite it. It's mezina bagan, or it's the bitten. They would fold the birch bark and make these patterns in it by biting it with their mouth teeth.
Ever heard of that?
Yeah, when the birch bark is young, it can be manipulated like that before it dries out.
It's kind of an art to know.
Oh, yeah.
And here's about the Walam Olam. We were talking that Walam Olam is actually translated as engraved tradition, painted or engraved traditions of the Lenni Lenape. And the historical chronicle was from the first settlement in Ohio. Rafinus wrote it down in 1833. Apparently, he was the Frenchman that found it or documented it after he got it from Dr. Ward of Indiana. Anyhow, I'm trying to get to the part with the boats, and here's some more on the birch bark scrolls. And this is what they did. They would coat them with red ochre, and these scrolls were embellished with bears and all kinds of imagery showing their lodges. Here's one that shows the boat. Okay, well that is an example of a boat, and these people represented as the lines coming up from the boat.
Is that people or oars? Because it's oars, then it's a gigantic boat.
Well, the people, those days didn't use oars, the Indians used paddles, but you can count how many people were there. And remember, we saw a big dugout canoe the other
Yeah.
day? You could get probably 20 or
Oh yeah.
more people in it.
Yeah, there's 20, 21. And a lot of times they would use like the medicine plants, and this is a depiction of the medicinal plants in a birch bark scroll.
Is that male and female symbology in that? On the right one?
Over here,
Yeah.
yeah, like the bear, and then you have the. But this is
Bear is talking, you know.
yeah, these could be bear paws, and then it has the serpent over here. I think this represents a lodge. You know, the people sitting in the lodge. And the procession path, I mean, this traces the path of that person and how they have to go around the lodge and into the lodge, the number of circles that they did. So these are ceremonial, instructional scrolls, basically showing how to teach them to do the ceremonies.
Seems to be the path of the animal, right? Like in the one on the right, perhaps that's the bear. If that's a cave that it starts at, then it comes out and it winds all the way around the square, right? And then it winds all the way around both. And then it ends up there at the bear. I guess if that's, we're saying that's a bear with the horns, right? And then the
Well,
other one, it appears to be that little line of animals. You've got like something the serpent's about to eat, and it's those things that are then in the procession. I don't know, man. It's very cool. It's very weird and very cool.
And those
What,
actually,
do we have any idea how old these were? I know we saw the photo of the gentleman who had them passed down to him, but does he have any idea of the age?
well, they were dated. There's some carbon dating on these that date to around 900 AD, and again, they were used throughout even before that, and passed down. And a lot of times they would find them in swamps that had been drained. And so this is a deep history going back many thousands of years. I mean, the dating, and that they what they would do is they would pass them from generation to generation, and the next generation would make a new one just like it.
Yeah, we
So-
were just watching John Anthony West on the Temple of Man.
So, but yeah, I mean, this shows just the amazing detail and all the different symbols. They really seem to correlate well with what we were seeing in the Book of Wild.
Rex,
You know, this one in particular was one I showed that, I mean, this has the lunar crescent, less like the Book of Wild had, the moon, the crescent moon, and the bow and arrow up here. I think this represents the warrior path going through the lodge, and he then, well, we were talking before about myth and legend. I mean, this is basically written myth because it shows the path of the warrior, and he has to go through these obstacles, and this is almost like the fire pit where he has to walk across the coals here, and then so he has to overcome his fears to do that, and then his desires. This is the lunar crescent up here. He passes that and he returns. So it's always the story of the myth is the going into the unknown, surpassing the desires, the duties, and this, and then also the fears in order to return back to where they started.
well, we were hearing that almost universally the serpent means unity that becomes duality. So it's the choice of the warrior in here, I believe. But I can't pass the fact of how Egyptian this looks. That snake and those chickens, they are just like hieroglyphs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And here's some more that just really are.
That moon, I'm sorry, but that moon, I would say that is done when that crescent moon shines through the hole into the temple or into
Oh, you
the
mean
lodge.
yeah? It would be right.
The time of the ceremony to me, but
the time of the ceremony, right? Right.
you think so?
Well, it's a good point. Yeah. You only have the big lodge ceremonies even yet today in some places on the first of the new month when you can see this thin sliver.
This thin slice. Yeah. Go on, Vince. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's so much detail here. There's the solar images, the bears, and multiple levels of living. Living, I mean, you have the bears up here. It almost reads like, left to right. These are very similar to what we saw in the Book of Wild.
Oh, so this is where the guy from Nintendo took the idea. The 2D level games.
Yeah, Mario Brothers, right?
Yeah, it does look remarkably like that, doesn't it?
It does. But again, I saw this
Face on the sun. That's crazy.
yeah, but the tablets that I've seen, and my first impression, even with Burroughs Cave and other tablets that I've seen, some in person, some in photos, the first thing that struck me was it looks so childish, right? And then the more I saw, and even those that are considered to be real, I realized that they all look very childish in their representation. So it makes me think that they might be all real, or most of them, because that is not a reason to discard them, because they all look like they are very simple and childish like.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think of the
Look
time
at that sun. Look at that sun. It could be done in the third grade in preschool.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's why I said the sun with the face on it. Yeah. Anyone who's had kids recognizes that sun.
Do you think this was actually done by kids learning, or this is the way they represent things?
Keep in mind that before the government schools, the Indians didn't go to school. So an old man like Jones Funmaker, who learned how to read and write at the age of 70, would write like that.
At the age of 70, yeah, I remember that, yeah. And he wrote a lot after that.
This one's from the Brooklyn Art Museum. And take a look at those, like the round body, the round head,
Mm-hmm.
and the arms, just like we were seeing before.
But there are other kinds of symbolism there we may not recognize. I went to the museum in Mexico when I started surveying. I had been sick and I went down there. And I'd been studying some of the mounds and stuff. And the guy says, well, you need to, if you're going to work up in that part of the country, you need to go with the Mixtecs codices. There are a few codices left, some Aztecs and Toltecs, a few Mayans. And he says, up in that country, the people who mined were called the Black Turtle people. And this Mackinac Island comes from an Indian word that means resting place of the black turtle. Well, they had the same story down there, except when they portrayed men coming out of these pits up north at Crooked Mountain carrying yellow knives, they were men in turtle shells.
Yellow knives,
Yeah.
copper knives?
Well, or yellow knives, but they were black men. Okay, so if I just saw that, okay, that's the turtle people.
That's the turtle people. I see what
And the other guy is a longer one. And we got pictures then at the same time of people up in the north, which would be up in Lake Superior, that looked like Vikings or north.
Yeah, very hairy legs and chest.
So, they would symbolize to get an idea across. And if you had enough people recognize that there were turtle people in the story, so the easiest way to make a turtle people is just make a turtle shell.
And you think that to the left represents agriculture?
Well, my guess and your guess is probably as good as, but you notice that rectilinear feature there.
Mm-hmm.
You remember I was showing you those
Yeah.
features up there and how the Hopincas would get so excited because those are the lodges. That represents a square type building like the Templars would make,
With a circle.
like the Norse would make, and inside it is a lodge, inside it. So that was a lodge house. That's what I read it as. And now let's see that there's a line that goes from that lodge house to the tall man, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would figure if the tall man were a Norse or a Templar who was with the Norse, that would be part of the story. And now to the left of that, you've got the bird sitting on a tripod. Don't know, but we got the same story at that site up there we call Copper Harbor. Next to it, you got a cat, probably a lynx. Well, at Diane's place, you got lynx paw, and that's
Yeah.
part of the Menominee story. That their symbol was the lynx. The Thunderbird is the leaders of the Ho Chunk. So I see possibly 1, 2, 4 different people interacting there. And you've got then this crooked, it doesn't look like a snake, but it's some sort of water route. If you're gonna travel across the country, what are you gonna do?
And
You're gonna go on the Mississippi River or the St. Lawrence
Sure.
River. So I see a story. And then what's on the other side? Well, it could be,
bundles of rice.
or it could be a crooked mountain, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Where we were,
Yeah.
and then little mountains next to it.
Yes.
So I can see it as a memory aid for a whole story if I got it right, but that doesn't mean I got it right.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it says it's a possible Menominee scroll.
Is
And
it a Menominee scroll?
yes,
All right, and that's where the cat would come in.
Or the links.
Link.
and then there's some that show this one, La Pointe as the place of the golden woodpecker. Chikamacon Bay. Here's a photo of James Red Sky. And then the enigmatic scrolls of the Midi decline. So he's saying here that it shows the red rock paintings of the Midi shaman at Bloodbane. So with it's called a Ping song.
So they were talking about. So that's apparently them cutting up dogs and putting them in a pot.
Yeah, the Squawkies still do it on an annual feast they have.
Yeah, that's what they said. So instead of boat, Vincent, that one we thought was a boat, I guess that's pieces of the dog being cooked in the pot.
Okay.
Well,
This is a very that almost looks like belonging to a alchemy book.
sorry, yeah, that is medicine, like plants, I think.
And it's taken care by the bear. Did the bear?
Well, that could to me, you know, we look at these sites and I say, oh, there's a wolf head and there's a bear head. That doesn't mean that the bears made them, but the clans that maintain the knowledge still in secret form
That's what I was asking.
are the Bear Clan, and that's what Richie is
Oh,
part
okay.
of.
The knowledge. So
Yeah.
they have the herbs too.
And the Wolf Clan are those that have to do with the stars, and that's Ralph Red Fox, and he was the last keeper of the star knowledge. The Bears and now are in charge of all these ancient sites. It's their responsibility to make sure they don't get destroyed. So obviously, like a site at the ASCII site, you've got wolf heads all over there, but then you've got bears above them. Ralph Red Fox's Fox Lodge, the way I read it, laid it out many years ago and the bears took over. Or they were,
And the
helping
fox
each other.
are from the socks.
pardon me?
And the fox come from the socks.
Fox, yeah, it's a different one.
Could it be in any way some sort of representation of a cosmology? What makes me ask that is I start with the, I guess we're calling bear on the left, and then the trees are representation of land on the right, and there's two little almost swimming like creatures up above it. And then what I see when the animals begin, as I move right from the bear, is all of those other animal representations seem aquatic. You know, it seems like I have a frog, it seems like I have a snake, And then it seems like I have something with fins and a beak, like maybe a seal or a catfish. I don't know. And then the other one seems to be perhaps like an otter, you know. So I'm seeing aquatic animals, and then even I've got the turtle and the frog linked up there with the other frog, and then all of the representations of plant life sort of streaming after them. So I get a very much like a land, water, earth vibe going on here, and I don't know. That's just what jumps out to me about it. Could it be that in any way?
Some of those creatures are also important in the Medewan lodge. The otter is an important part. Some of the clans that are absorbed are the otter, the bear runs it, and so forth. So those are all possibilities. Beyond that, I don't want to add anything because your guess is as good as mine.
Got it. Thank you, James.
But there's the turtle, you see?
Yeah.
Okay. The Wallam Olam was preserved by the Lenni Lenape, which is the turtle clan, turtle people that went out to the Dutch. And I don't know if they still exist or not, but that's the symbol of the people who preserved the Wallam Olam migration story.
So yeah, I'll keep going. There's just
There again, you see that a circular or a square form and something round inside of it. The square form or rectilinear
Circle in
form.
the square.
They got so excited, and when we saw that on the maps, those are the sites that old Tom Hopinka got excited about. Inside of those was where the lodges then met. But the lodge symbol, if they didn't have a square building, is round or rectangular. So you've got the same pattern here. You've got rectilinear on the bottom, but you've got two different circles inside that could be male and female lodges, like we have down at southern Wisconsin. Same thing.
And in Canada.
There's a language here. I don't propose to know what it means, but that's what I see. And I know that rectilinear form, when you find it in the woods, that is something that's important.
I was wanting to ask if you saw that during the surveys that you did in the woods, like you would find type of lodges like that.
Say again?
Did you find lodges like that
Yes.
during surveys?
Yes, very much. And we had Native Americans with us. And
Yes.
they said, look at that, we got, oh my God, look at, blah, blah, blah. That's how our medicine lodge, which is equivalent to the white man's Masonic lodges, came here in those rectilinear houses.
Wow.
And up at Necedah, there's two of those like that. Up at Lonso Meadows, Newfoundland, where the Vikings were.
Yeah, the same.
That's the kind of houses that they
Yeah.
had. And evidently, according to Jones Funmaker, their medicine lodge, which is parallel to the Masonic lodge, was brought in by people who made buildings like that. And that would have been the Norse, and probably before them, the Portuguese. You know about the Portuguese?
I have a
Yeah.
more or less an idea.
They went.
Those people.
They also traveled a lot, I understand.
Bunch of weirdos, man.
Yeah.
Hiding Templars in ancient megalithic structures they call mountains, and then sending Ricardo over here. It's a weird country, man.
Double agent. Triple agent.
But yeah, I mean these are amazing. The squares after squares, and I mean we see this in the Book of Wild too. There were similar symbols like this.
Yeah, if you were making round or oblong huts, wigwams, and somebody came in and made square building like that, number one, they'd be different. And especially if they had a different lodge system, it would stick in your brain. And that's what I see. There you again, you got the oblong deal inside of two rectilinears. Telling you something.
You know, that previous image, it's just a comment completely out of context here, but do you see this drawing? How many people have seen crop circles like that?
Well, you got the geometrical pattern.
Yeah.
Geometry is in all cultures, and it goes right to the brain. So who's ever trying to get in our brain are using the same way in.
I wonder if they saw these patterns in nature too. Because we were on a circle just
Sure.
the day before yesterday.
Yeah, the bighorn medicine wheel is a circle. And, yeah.
And this is, it says it's copied from the other one to derive from a common source. So they may have been recopying it from the previous one that we saw.
Well, the bark wouldn't last long, right? So
Right. So they would recopy it and keep it for generations by making the similar copies. And this is another one that we looked at earlier with a similar type of recopying.
yeah, but this look much more like Eastern to me than Native American.
Well,
They don't?
who were the people that were on Iceland before Eric the Red?
Okay.
Probably the people like the Portuguese, and they were trading with people in the Mediterranean. Yeah, of course.
It looks very Eastern to me. I'm sure I've seen representations like this, even, I can't remember, but either in Malta or...
Well, the story here that accompanies it is really interesting. It says, the figure with the bow and arrow, not represented by Moosebell, is God himself, who protects the Miniwuggan. No evil can enter. Moosebell identifies Red Sky's east door as the west door. Red Sky's sacred place becomes the spot where the road of certain good hunters branches from the true Midwin road to the diversion path. On the central path, during the pair of feet represent the candidate's first two steps through life. In the central circle, he stops to rest and completes his initiation into the fourth degree, the four lines radiating from the outer circle, showing that the fourth magic shot from the sacred otter is given at this point. Then comes the last two steps through life. What Red Skies interprets as rock the foundation in the corner of his chart becomes Moosebell's stop for the final rest and for a talk with the Manitou. Just outside the west entrance, they are rejoined by the hunters, who, though accepted as a full fourth degree member, do not receive the rites. They travel together to Kitchisgon, or heaven, literally the great conjurer, the place of the great Chiziki. Thus, the sacred pole is converted to the path to heaven. So yeah, each of these have just amazing stories that are detailed out about them, and there's so
Blood
much.
flap savages. With cosmologies and writing.
Here's a map, the map of Lake Superior. It goes on the Mississippi River. The midi centers are shown here. So all these teepees represent the midi centers, and then these are places associated with the midi oral traditions.
Can you zoom in further?
Yeah. They
What does
carry
it
on
say?
like
Grand Portage, is that what it says there?
You see where we were sticking up?
Yeah. Grand Portage, Fort William.
yeah. So this just shows how widespread that culture was and still is. You know, it just that's where they had these massive centers for the Minoan culture there.
Oh, Lake Nipissing, Main Route West. So they didn't have to deal with border officials, I believe, at this time.
Well, the French were trying to keep the British out. The British got up in the Hudson Bay and they kept the French out from there. They had their border officials. Indians had very, very poor immigration policies in those days.
But it's very confusing because the British fought the French, and then they fought the other group of white Americans.
The colonists, because the British then broke into Protestants or protesters, so they broke up. But they were all Christians when they came,
But they denied
And
the
then
Queen
they-
and King and Queen.
and then they got involved in Europe in the 30-Year War, where they killed off over half the people, over where the sun goes around the earth. Earth goes around. And that's the time British and French came here. And they were squabbling when they came. And we don't teach that in our schools. That's embarrassing. We've got to maintain that truth if we want to see what was going on.
Where is it that you went to?
It's right there, yes.
And see Lake Superior and that big horn sticking up?
Yeah.
Right, we are going towards the end of that horn, and we got about at the curve, then turned around and came back. And there was a big, we call it the ditch site there, one of the prehistoric mines that would go for about a half a mile, anywhere from about 2 to 14, 15 feet deep. A vein of ancient copper that people had exploited. That's where we were, turned around. And that's where there's evidence that I saw of, well, a square building like that. And also we found what could be a Templar-like brooch years ago.
Wow.
And a place name called Amik.
Amek, yeah.
And one of the guys that takes care of me and gives me pills at where I live is Amik, and he's from Africa. And I says, "What does that mean?" He says, "Something valuable." Up in the UP, what does Amik mean? It's Algonquin. It means something valuable, like a beaver fur. And if they would have come to that port, that's right near that site we were at, those would most likely be Phoenicians. And if there were Phoenicians on board, they'd be from Africa somewhere.
Yeah. Carthage is in Africa. So.
Did you have black people in Portugal ever?
Mostly. So we were at war with them. 74, 70, 75,
Well, yeah, but if people
70. So,
fight-
but after the 80s, they start coming into Portugal.
The Moors?
No, the Moors, they invaded Iberia around 600
And those are black?
AD. Some of them might have
Yeah,
been.
okay.
Yeah.
But from Africa, you got a bunch of
Not
African-
all Africans are black, but
Oh,
yeah.
true. Not all Americans are white.
Not all Americans are white. It's a good one.
So this shows a really good picture of what the lodge, I guess, outline looks like with the pole.
Oh, that's the old lodge, huh?
Can you zoom in? Is it made of wood or stone?
It looks like wood, but posts.
Remember those two features we saw at Powers Bluff?
Yes.
I said these were rock foundations.
Yes.
That's all that was left. most likely one of them was like that. Once a lodge.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. This represents the bears, or this is actually the fish. The fish sculpture skeleton, the different branching skeletons of the fish.
The fish, that represents fish?
Yeah, let me show you.
Bad medicine bear. Why is it bad?
Well, good medicines were help each other, and they got fighting, and bad medicine was poison and stuff, and that still was going on up
So
there.
what is that T pillar in there?
Hang on.
There are three pillars. Three
This
T
one?
pillars in there.
Oh, that almost looks like you're walking toward the lodge. I don't know.
So there's 7 balls on the left, 8 balls on the right, 3 points on the stick on the right, and, well, 3 on the left, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the comparison between these. And these may have been recopied from earlier versions to show how it progressed.
Yeah, the triangle and the square.
Well, yeah, I think they're all different sources or different artists or different. I mean, it's been the same name. You see how they all, one is Crow & Co., one is Landez, one is Hay, one is Many something Historical Society. They're all different sources, and I guess what he's doing here is saying they're different versions of the same. You know,
Same,
they're
yeah.
passing on the same info, but these are the different ways they were represented.
Yeah.
Well, Vince, we are 8 minutes from the end. Can you just go into the, because I saw some very interesting 2-level boats.
Okay, let's see.
Look at that. We could spend hours on this. Just amazing.
Yep. Looks like a boat to me.
Oh, these geometries of these things are incredible. Oops, there's a horse.
Okay, wait here. Okay, this is where I was saying about the fish. What is the purpose of this? It says, assuming the support of the headless fish manitou could help to be enlisted as an engineer, relentless retaliation against the client's enemy. In fact, both the headless fish, as this figure shows here, these are the representation of the bad mini deal with the temptation theme. Why disguise in the first place, let alone the final new disguise? So it's very very symbolic there.
So it's like a trickster on purpose?
Yeah, the headless fish with the bad medicine. So yeah, look at these cat here scrolls, all kinds of amazing things.
This is all from the same book.
Yeah, this is the book called The Sacred Scrolls of the Southern Ojibwe.
Yeah, these are right, but not the same book we're looking at in the first
Okay.
half.
Okay. Very expressive that guy. Oh, back to.
Sorry, going fast.
Is that writing?
This says The Bear's Lip by Glenbow, so it's
It looks like Kipu, right?
Yeah, like quickly. Quickly. Yeah, take a look at these.
Look at that.
Sun page view.
Ooh.
That one looks like it's bitten almost. Birch bark biting of turtle shaking tent. Norville Morcio, the Mishi Fishu.
They're inside the monster.
Yeah.
And there was a turtle there, you saw it?
Horned serpent.
The horned jaguar? No, not jaguar. What?
Lynx.
Go back. The lynx.
Horned lynx.
And they compare it with the British lion.
And the other one, the next one, this is a lynx or a panther? A horn, the water
That would be
spirit.
a long tail has to be a panther.
It's a water spirit. Half the time good, half the time bad.
They're called other images of the great lion.
But on the email, you had these images in red ochre of the of boats.
Yeah, I can get to that in just a second. That's amazing. Fourth degree chart.
Look at that. It's a labyrinth.
So these are the ghost scrolls of the seventh degree.
Have you ever seen this book?
I've not seen this book. I've seen similar pictures. Cooper Crane.
Yeah. He was just screaming an hour ago, right by the window.
You heard one? That's amazing.
You didn't hear the two cranes screaming by the window?
Oh wow, yeah. They must have anticipated this.
There we are. And they're still making those up by Toma. I can show you. And then when they come for the lodge, they bring their own tarps and put it over.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that was going on down at where the apparition for the Virgin Mary was, I tell you, before the whites got involved.
Clothes.
This is a comparison of lists of stopping places traditionally assigned to the westward migration of the Ojibwe. So between the different scrolls, I guess they have a comparison here that they all show up on the different scrolls with the same locations.
It's a lot of scrolls, man. I mean, I assumed when you told me that we had, scrolls that there would be quite a few, but and I'm sure this is but a tip of the iceberg taste of how many there actually are, but this is a lot.
Yeah.
For people that didn't have writing.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't have writing, but they had hundreds and hundreds of scrolls, and these Book of Wild And
Yeah, I mean they wrote with a knife on bark, but it's a scroll and it's writing.
Well,
I mean,
it
you know.
depends on what you call writing. So
Well, I mean, I would call it writing, right? Like,
no,
I
no,
mean,
that's what I'm saying.
essentially, it's on paper. They made a papyrus, but they used birch bark, which they found naturally, and they didn't have pens and ink and shit, and so they wanted it to last. And just like wood, they took a knife and they carved it. I
That's
mean,
my point. How arrogant it is to say that that is not writing, because if that tells a
Oh,
story,
right, yeah.
if it tells a story, it's not different from a book or any other document,
It's not. No.
as long as you can read it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of damn scrolls for some people that couldn't write, man.
Couldn't write. That's all it's saying. Butt flap savages.
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, I think we're back at the beginning now.
There we go. Right in 2 hours, Vince.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
we'll have to leave the boats for next time.
It's incredible. Yeah, the detail
Great
and
stuff, great stuff.
Yeah.
thank you. So yeah, if you wanted to see the Book of Wild, this is just a complete scan of all the different pages. There's so many images here with the same type of things that we're seeing. They had a lot of detail in all the different symbols throughout.
You have to send me the complete book, because the ones that are in email are just your slides.
Right, I've just sent the slides extracted where I tried to put these in
Yeah,
groups.
if you can send the full book, I appreciate that.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, but like
Well-
this is a page from it,
Jim, any last words?
Oh, wonderful. I'm impressed. Good stuff.
Thank you, Vincent. That was an excellent one. What's up, Ricardo?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Take us to the end.
Everybody, you know where to find us. You'll see Ricardo and I. Ricardo, are you going to take part in Mars tomorrow? 3:30
What time
Central Time.
What time is it?
3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
I'll try.
So, hopefully you'll see Ricardo and I tomorrow at 3:30 Central Standard Time for Mars Disclosure Live on all of our channels. You'll see us back here next week. We'll have Rick back with us, we hope, and Ricardo will be joining us from across the ocean, it would seem. Everybody out there that is still with us and listening, thank you very much. If you yourself are an independent artist, researcher, communicator, activist, anybody just like Vincent here who has information which you would like to put out or believe is important to the whole, then guess what? We want to talk to you over here at the Institute of Natural Philosophy. Come find us at our website, find us here, find us in the chat, find us anywhere you can, and just know that we want to hear from you. Guys, thank you very much. Vincent, thank you for your time, for your research, and for bringing all of this to our attention. Mr. Shears, as always, it's a pleasure. I do hope we get to talk to you again soon, because I just learn every time I sit and throw a general question your direction, I have knowledge, just back at mine in waves, and I thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for setting up the forum. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back soon, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week.
Don't forget Universe Unveiled.
Universe Unveiled, that's Jacqueline and Sarah, who are always here in our chat. Go see them, like and subscribe.
Tomorrow we'll have the Sweet Sunday News.
Sunday News is at 12, 11 or 11?
I think now it's at 1.
It's at 1 Eastern. It's already live. Go to their YouTube page. You'll see the link already up there. She's got it live. And tomorrow they'll be going live. And we'll see you all in the chat. Hopefully I will be there. I'm sure Ricardo will. And that's it. What else, Ricardo? Did I forget anybody else?
I just want to say, don't forget the Shaman and Philosopher channel. This is the Institute for Natural Philosophy main channel. Vince on X, Jason on X, Rick Osmond is also on X and Facebook. And don't forget on Patreon, Lost America, probably the best ancient America documentary out there, with 11 or 12 episodes where you'll find Jim in several of them. So go and check that out too. And thank you all for staying with us, and a very fond farewell to you all.